All right, Shalom. Let's check the feed real quick. Should get me running. We should be good. Should be good. There we go. Let's get right to it.
Unlimited access to WSJ News.
So we don't really have a whole lot of information at precisely what led up to this specific program or why it is that the federal government and the Marine Corps are doing this. It's currently in what they're calling a pilot stage or proof of concept. So you have ICE agents who are going to be stationed at Camp Pendleton in California, Quantico, Virginia, and at a Marine Corps base in Hawaii. And so based on what has been said by both the Marine Corps and by officials from the administration, these agents are attempted to try to augment security, particularly around the perimeter of these Marine Corps bases. It's unclear precisely what led to this collaboration. There have been some relatively high profile unlawful entries or attempted crossings into military bases over the last several years. But when asked specifically, officials have been very tight-lipped about the details and what spawned the program. In terms of high-profile events, you had last year a very high-profile event. Jordanian men in a truck did not heed the instruction of Marines when they were trying to but later on, judges involving things like UAVs or drones, where people have flown them illegally over military installations. And then the Wall Street Journal reported in 2023 that approximately 100 Chinese nationals have in some way breached or attempted to breach military installations, but it's unclear where that data was coming from. And it's also unclear when we talk about breaches generally, if we're talking about US installations in the US, or if we're talking about global installations. The US military has approximately 800 bases, both domestically and abroad. And so it's not always clear what it is that we're looking at. Now, in terms of what security looks like surrounding these bases, that, of course, I don't know the interworkings of their specific types of security. But of course, you're going to have intensive monitoring. Most of our military bases, if not all of them, are going to have really well monitored perimeters, whether that is personnel, whether that is cameras, various combinations of electronic and personal security. It's not as though people can just waltz in to a military base, and anyone who has ever attempted either by permission or otherwise to go onto a military base is likely keenly aware of the protocols necessary to get into a base. I will say that I am confused. I'm curious to be a fly on the wall specifically for the Marine Corps, because on the one hand, you have these larger discussions about the collaboration between ICE and the Marine Corps as this ongoing idea or this ongoing illustration of cooperation between the Marine Corps and other federal agencies. But one of the other things that I think this presents as well is it gives kind of an odd impression that the Marine Corps is not handling its own security sufficiently, which, having known quite a few Marines in my time, I can't imagine that they would find that to be a particularly flattering interpretation.
All right, Shalom. Bear with me. Pull this up. All right, Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I'm back with another quick lesson through the Holy Spirit, the Rakakwadash. All right, and before we get to the main point, I just wanted to open up with that video here, as they were talking about, ICE and the Marine Corps, being sanctioned down in Camp Pendleton and various Marine Corps bases around the country or whatnot. As we talked about yesterday in the lesson that I went into, how, pretty much Trump, these Edomites are, beefing up their military strength, their power and whatnot, and they're getting ready to use the sword. All right. But the title of this lesson, which we'll get into in a minute, the war on detention camps, aka FEMA camps, are expanding across America, tying it all into prophecy. All right. Now, before we get there, all right, just to add on to what we just saw in this video, this is from America's First Report. It says preparing for military strikes becomes top prepper priority in the age of wars and rumors of wars. Like it tells us in Ephesians, the 5th chapter, to redeem the time. Matter of fact, we'll get it. To redeem the time because of what? The days are evil. All right. Ephesians 5 in verse 14, it says, wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Yahweh Shai shall give thee light. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Right. So, everybody in some form or fashion knows that something ill is getting ready to come down the pipe. However you want to look at it. All right. Dealing with these deportations. All right. The brewing of civil war, Esau rising up, Jake rising up. As we just heard in the first video here, military bases potentially being infiltrated. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's just, you can feel it in the air, basically. Right. So people expect something to go down sooner or later. All right. So let's read these points. Okay. Make it bigger. Bear with me and blow it up a little bit. There we go. So it says, natural news, the world is teetering on the edge of disaster. All right. And we all know that. All right. Prophecy is showing us that. The world is teetering on the edge of disaster. Wars are escalating. Alliances are shifting. The nuclear powers are flexing their arsenals. While governments assure the public of safety, history has proven that official narratives often ignore the harsh realities until it's too late. Today, with conflicts intensified between nuclear-armed states, the unthinkable is no longer hypothetical. The risk of nuclear war is real, and preparation is no longer optional. This isn't fear-mongering. In the age of global wars and rumors of wars, many are speaking of the end times and biblical prophecy. And why is this happening? Because of the prophets, man. Okay, the standard has been lifted. The word has gone out. Right. Matter of fact, let's make a point on that. Okay, I believe it's Psalm 60 and was it 60 and 4? Let me pull it up real quick. I want to say Psalm 60 and 4. All right, here we go. Psalm 60 and verse 4 says, thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee. All right, the banner going back to the standard, the truth. All right, it says, thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth. Salah. Verse 5, that thy beloved may be delivered. Who's the beloved? The elect. Save with thy right hand and hear me. That right hand represents Yahweh Shai. So again, the point, this is happening because the Lord has raised up the true prophets in these last days to declare the truth, to declare prophecy, the end times, the judgments, the things that are getting ready to happen. Okay, the vision. Okay, this vision is being made plain upon tables. Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. Right? So it says, this is in fear mongering in the age in the age of global wars and rumors of wars, many are speaking of end times and biblical prophecies. As the religious carry out their doomsday plans in their heads, there is wisdom in preparing for the worst case scenario and not worrying about things you cannot control. All right. And how we doomsday is through the faith of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. All right. Scripture said that he's going to provide, you know. All we got to do is continue to rely on him. Right. I just want to read these points and then we'll get to the main topic here. It says, those who act now while time remains may have the only chance of protecting their families from the horrors of radiation, societal collapse, and government failures that would follow. The Middle East and Ukraine conflicts push near nuclear armed nations toward direct confrontation. All right. And we see the buildup. Okay. Joel, the 3rd chapter. All right. How these nations are going to be brought into the valley of Yehoshaphat. Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. All right. Gog and Magog and the nations aligning themselves with him to come against the West. All right. All of those various prophecies, Isaiah 13, Isaiah 14. Okay, Jeremiah 51 and many others. Okay, it's all leading towards nuclear destruction, right? It says underground bunkers, reinforced basements. All right, which we've done articles and lessons on this, going into the to the elites, you know, making those preparations. All right, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, all those wealthy Edomites, Amalekites, the elite. Okay, Revelation was it 16? Okay, how they would hide themselves in the dens of the rocks, right? It says, or shielded above ground shelters can drastically increase survival odds. 2 week supply of water, non-perishable food, medical essentials, radiation detection gear is critical. But see, what these people don't understand, there's not going to be any survivors in America, man. Okay, the Lord said in Jeremiah, the 50th chapter or the 51st chapter, that the land of Babylon would be desolate without any inhabitant. Okay. So a lot of these doomsday preppers over here in America is all in vain, but they don't know that. We understand that. Okay. Remember, evil men understand not judgment, but they that fear the Lord understand all things. Okay. It says fallout patterns depend on wind currents. Waiting at least 14 days reduces radiation exposure by 99%. Alternative communication methods like hand crank radios bypass failed infrastructure. Mental preparedness is vital, right? And this is what we're telling you believers in Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, that's spiritual. Okay, mental preparedness is vital, right? Let's get that. Isaiah 33 and 6. That's your mental preparedness right there. Okay. Isaiah 33 and 6, it says, "In wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times." See that? See, we have the truth. Like I was talking to the brother Manatazak, okay, out there in the SFA camp. All right. And you know, we got the truth. This is what we was talking about, man. We got the truth. And when this shit hits the fan, many people are gonna bug the hell out. Okay. Just like Elder Apostle Gabar said yesterday in the elders Sunday lesson they did. All right, these people are going to lose their goddamn minds. All right, when resources are cut off. All right, when their strength was when their strength was in reliance in Pharaoh. Okay, in reliance in Egypt. Okay, when they have no covering, these people are going to lose it. All right, but our strength is in the Lord. Right, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and the strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, is his treasure, right? So it all comes back to what the fear of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, first and foremost, man. Okay? Fear and reverence of the Lord, right? Mental preparedness is as vital as physical stockpiling. Panic kills while knowledge saves lives. You see that? It's a spirit. Okay? And the rest reads on. All right. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with, again, of, you know, stockpiling and having weapons. All right. But we know that's not our main reliance. Our reliance is in the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai in these times to come. Right. Jeremiah 51, verse 45, it says, "My people, go you out in the midst of her, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of the Lord. All right. So as has been echoed, over these past years, okay, that we are in the time of the judgment of the Lord, man. This is the time to leave Babylon behind. All right, to detach your spirit and mind from this place. Okay, to repent and to come back under the guidance and protection of the Lord. It says, verse 46, and unless your heart faint and you fear for the rumor that should be heard in the land, a rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that another year shall come a rumor, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler, right? And we're getting ready to see that on a high level right now, man, as well. Matthew 24. Okay, Matthew 24 and verse 7 or 6. Matthew 24, verse 6, it says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there should be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places, right? And there's a lot of shit going on, man. Elder Manath Zaba just did the lesson going into the flood that went down in Texas, man. A lot of people got drowned out. That shit was crazy. All the footage that's on the internet, cars were fully submerged underwater, man. Houses were floating away, man. Okay, and it's not just in Texas. Other places got hit too, but a lot of judgment is going out, man. All right. There should be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. There you have it, man. So this is what people see and are starting to realize and acknowledge. All right. But getting into the main point here. All right. Again, the war on Jake and the detention camps are expanding across America. These FEMA camps. All right. Let's pull this up. Bear with me. All right, here we go. So this came out today, July 7th. It says dozens of new migrant detention centers spawn as Trump administration's deportation agenda marches on. All right. So this guy Trump has been on a rampage, as you've seen. Okay. Alligator Alcatraz. He's trying to build a shark prison surrounded by sharks. He's trying to do one with bears. Okay, this man is going all the way there. All right, but the point again is they're expanding these FEMA camps, man, because that's what these are. Okay, aka detention centers, right? It says, and reading on here, it says, let's make that bigger. All right. So it says that the Trump administration is expanding migrant detention centers across the country as it seeks to bolster the resources needed to carry out its massive deportation agenda. Through various agreements with local jails and private contractors, the Trump administration has been able to dramatically expand migrant detention capacity across the U.S. According to government figures analyzed by Bloomberg, altogether around 60 additional federal, state, and local jails and prisons have started holding newly apprehended migrants facing removal since President Donald Trump re-entered office in January, right? So as you see, because through the spirit, for me at least, me doing my lessons, it's been like fucking Ice Week. All these news, all these articles, what this devil is doing, It says the newly established detention centers. Let's go down. It says the newly established detention centers include 5 operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It says 4 run by private contractors such as GEO Group, the Core Civic, and 2 sites at Guantanamo Bay. According to Bloomberg, based on daily average population data, these facilities held an estimated 5,600 individuals between May 27th and June 9th. Adequate detention space is crucial for the Trump administration as it pursues the wide-scale apprehensions and deportations of illegal migrants, right? So as you see, wide-scale apprehensions, right? They're going to go around snatching up thousands upon thousands of Jakes, man. Okay? It says, because this is who this is for, all right? It says very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. Trump said earlier in July during a press conference for the opening of Alligator Alcatraz, a state-run migrant detention center in southern Florida built to hold thousands of migrant detainees, right? And the rest reads on. Now I want to play a video, all right? Because we already spoke about this. So real quick, let's grab some scriptures here. All right. Because here it is, right? All of this stuff is going on. And like it says, all these things are going on, roughly paraphrasing, but Jake is not going to be mindful of the scourges. All right. There's a reason why these things are happening, right? And I want to make a point on that. All right. This is Jeremiah chapter 4. Right? Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 14. It says, O Jerusalem, wash thy heart, meaning wash your mind from wickedness, that thou mayest be saved. How long shall thy vain thoughts lodge within thee? Right. So, like we say, how long are you tribes going to continue to remain niggas, man? Continue to be caught up in this damn demonic culture, all right? Calling on these false gods in these churches and these different philosophies and false doctrines. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to understand that you have enemies, right? That you're not equal. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to understand these things, man? Right? It says, for a voice declare from Dan and publish affliction from Mount Ephraim. Verse 16, make you mention to the nations, behold, publish against Jerusalem that the watchers come from a far country and give out their voice against the cities of Judah, right? It says, as keepers of the field are they against her round about, because she have been rebellious against me, saith the Lord. It says, verse 18, thy way and thy doings have procured these things unto thee. This is thy wickedness, because it is bitter, right? And that's spiritual, that we brought this out of camp. All right, where are we at? In the land of bitterness, man. In the midst of a bitter captivity. Because it is bitter, because it reacheth unto thy heart. And I want to read this in NLT real quick, right? Same verses. So this is Jeremiah 4:14 NLT. It says, O Jerusalem, cleanse your heart that you may be saved. How long will you harbor your evil thoughts? Verse 15, your destruction has been announced from Dan in the hill country of Ephraim. Warn the surrounding nations and announce this to Jerusalem. The enemy is coming from a distant land, raising a battle cry against the towns of Judah. And this is the spirit, man. Okay, these Edomites have officially declared war against the tribes, man. And they're openly showing you every day. Okay, the mounting up of troops, the militarization of the cops, the police forces, all right, the armies, all right, the bounty hunters, these concentration camps. Okay, the enemy is coming. This is what's being declared to you. Okay, the enemy is coming from a distant land, raising a battle cry against the towns of Judah. Okay, all the tribes. It says they surround, verse 17, they surround Jerusalem like watchmen around a field. See that? They surround Jerusalem like watchmen around the field. For my people have rebelled against me, said the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai. The point, verse 18, it says, your own actions have brought this upon you. Okay, there's a reason why this shit is happening, man. Okay, you rejected the Lord. You didn't believe. You trusted in these false gods. You believed in America. You thought you were an American. You thought these Edomites loved you. Right? Your own actions brought this upon you. This punishment is bitter, right? Look what's going on. All right. Concentration camps, alligator Alcatraz, niggas getting thrown out of planes, man, in the middle of the ocean. Okay. Getting snatched up out of houses, out of the club, you know, off of construction construction sites. Okay. There's a lot of wild shit going on right now. Right. It says this punishment is bitter, piercing you to the heart. Let me make a point on that, man. I saw this video earlier. The Elder Hawaii shared it. Right? Check this out. Hey, these niggas are everywhere. In the club, everywhere. It said ICE. It says ICE took the DJ before the party started, man. Hey, they're not playing, man. Goodness gracious, man. Let me get this too, and we'll get to the clip. Right? But Jake is not mindful of the scourges, man. As I was talking to the elder brothers about it, you know, all this is going on. War is declared against Jake, and our people are clueless, man. Right? This is Second Ezra, excuse me, Second Ezra 16. And let me get it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Second Ezra 16 and 20. All right. Matter of fact, we'll just read down to the point. All right. So Second Ezra 16, 17, it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars. And the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Verse 19, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. Okay, these are the penalties, man. Okay, the point. Verse 20, it says, but for all these things, they should not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. So all of this shit is going on right in front of Jake, and Jake is not even considering. Jake is not repenting. Jake is not seeking out the Lord. All right, our people just continue to remain in their own wickedness, man. And this is why, again, these things are being brought upon our people. Okay, in drastic measures. All right. Here's another point before we get to the video. Right. Just adding on these camps that are being spread out, that are being built up daily. Yahoo News, Trump creates dozens of new ICE facilities as immigration war expands. This is a war, as I said. This is the war on Jake. Okay, and these Edomites are with it as we went through this yesterday. Okay, the polls and all of that. Majority of these Edomites approve what Trump is doing. Okay, and this is how you know that eventually some type of war, civil war, is going to break loose. Right? Let's get into this video real quick. All right. As I always say, it's going down. Okay. Bombshell immigrants tortured at MAGA concentration camp.
So I remember all the way back in 2017, I covered a story that I thought was a huge deal, but it wasn't getting talked about much. This is the story right here. So it's in The Guardian. Trump's impending executive order heralds dangerous return to torture, official warns. So in other words, Trump signed a pro-torture executive order. And this, of course, came on the heels of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. They had Guantanamo Bay. They had Abu Ghraib. They took away people's rights. They ended up torturing what ended up being completely innocent people. This was a massive scandal. We had the pictures coming out of Abu Ghraib with U.S. service members sort of laughing while torturing innocent people. And it was viewed as like a disgusting stain on this country. And the world was absolutely outraged. And it was the beginning of the end of the downfall of even just the perception that we give a shit about international law and human rights and things of that nature. And remember, that's the story we tell ourselves. We suck ourselves off about how, oh, we care about international law and human rights, and that's why we are the world's policemen, and we mean well, and we try our best. And that was the story. But it became clear at the time that's not true. Then Obama gets in there and he says, we look forward, we don't look backwards. So in other words, I'm not going to prosecute the war criminals and the torturers. I'm not going to prosecute the assholes on Wall Street who committed fraud and which led to millions of people losing their homes. We're not going to do it. And at that moment, what everybody realized, every astute political observer realized is, okay, well, now you just opened up the door to say torture is just a matter of opinion. It's no longer the law. It's no longer enforced. If the government decides to torture, there are no consequences for it. So Trump gets in there and he signs a pro-torture executive order. And I was hair on fire at the time about it. And guess what? Now we have more information that indeed torture is occurring. Get this, in NBC News. Kilmar Abrego Garcia suffered psychological and physical torture in El Salvador prison, attorneys say. At the notorious CCOT prison, he was forced to frog march and to kneel from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., and he was subjected to beatings and threats, his lawyer said Wednesday. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was stripped naked, had his head shaved, was beaten, forced to kneel for hours overnight, and lost over 30 pounds during his time at the notorious CCOT prison in El Salvador.
Yeah, we told you. See? We told you off camera, hey, these Edomites was going to have a fucking way with Jake, man. Right? But are you surprised? Right? Because I brought this out last year, and he said this. Just to remind you again, Trump's plan for a second term reportedly includes firing squads, hangings, and group executions, man. And now he's talking about live streaming deaths, you know, the inmates and shit like that, man. All right, so hey, this shit is happening. Okay, let's go back. You thought this was a game.
To beatings and threats, his lawyer said Wednesday. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was stripped naked, had his head shaved, was beaten, forced to kneel for hours overnight, and lost over 30 pounds during his time at the notorious CCOT prison in El Salvador, his attorneys say in a new court filing. Abrego of Maryland was deported to El Salvador in March by the Trump administration in an administrative error and was returned to the U.S. in June to face federal charges. By the way, I should point out these federal charges are completely and utterly bogus, trumped up nonsense. They're trying to do it to save face about the fact that they deported an innocent person and sent him to a concentration camp. At the time of his removal from the U.S., Abrego was protected from deportation by a 2019 court order. His high-profile case was pushed into the national spotlight, sparking a heated debate over Trump's immigration crackdown and the race to deport people at times without due process. Abrego was deported to El Salvador on March 15th and placed into CCOT, a mega prison known for its brutal conditions. There, he was allegedly subjected to severe beatings, sleep deprivation, inadequate nutrition, and psychological torture, his attorney said in an amended complaint filed Wednesday. That complaint is part of a federal lawsuit filed by Abrego's wife against the Trump administration in the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland.
Right, real quick. Hey, again, those times are upon us. All right, Revelation 2:10, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison that you may be tried. And you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So again, we're in those times wanted to point that out. All right? Shit is deadly serious, man. Okay?
The complaint states that upon arrival at CCOT, Abrego was forced to strip, issued prison clothing, kicked in the legs with boots, and struck on his head and arms to change faster. His head was also allegedly shaved, and he was frog marched to a cell while being hit with wooden batons. The following day, he had visible bruises and lumps all over his body. In that cell, he and 20 other Salvadorians were forced to kneel from approximately 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., with guards striking anyone who fell from exhaustion. During that time, Abrego...
Hey, this is that crew lord, man. Kneeling from 9 a.m. to what did he say, 6 a.m., 6 p.m.? Damn.
Was denied bathroom access and soiled himself, according to the complaint. The inmates were confined to metal bunks with no mattresses in overcrowded cells with windows and bright lights that stayed on 24 hours a day. While there, prisoners repeatedly told Abrego that they would transfer him to cells containing gang members who they assured him would tear him apart. The attorney said Abrego observed prisoners violently harm each other without staff intervention. Quote, screams from nearby cells would similarly ring out throughout the night without any response from prison guards or personnel. In his first 2 weeks, he lost 31 pounds. On April 9th, the complaint says Abrego and 4 others were transferred to a different module in CCOT, but the next day he was transferred alone to the Centro Industrial Prison Facility in Santa Ana, El Salvador. Throughout his time in El Salvador, his lawyer said Abrego was denied any communications with his family and access to counsel until Senator Chris Van Hollen visited him on April 17th. Shout out to Chris Van Hollen, man. This was one of those stories that blew up and the media talked about it endlessly. The media did a good job discussing it. And then you had Democratic politicians actually step up and do some shit. This wasn't just performative. This was real. To go to El Salvador and demand to see this guy is real shit. The Supreme Court ruled in April that his removal was illegal and determined that a judge's order for the administration to facilitate his return was proper. Abrego was ultimately returned to the U.S. on June 6 following a contentious back and forth with the court and the Trump administration that raised concerns about the defiance of the judicial branch. By the way, understand something. What made Trump cave on this? It was the relentless pressure, the relentless coverage from the media, the fact that Democratic politicians kept going down there. This stayed in the news. It was top of mind. People kept talking about it. They kept saying, look how fascist Trump is. Look how insane he is. Look how authoritarian he is. Look how he's destroying this person's life. Look, this guy was totally innocent. And because of that relentless pressure, that's why he was brought back to the country. They still tried to save face by mucking up these bullshit charges, but he's back in the country. And the reality is he's probably going to win those cases anyway. And so he'll be free to go. But like, again, this goes to show you the theory has been proven. When the liberals and leftists and anybody of good conscience who's anti-Trump stands up and speaks out about the horrors of this regime and doesn't stop and does a full court press and goes on the offense and is relentless, that's how you get change. It's not by holding hands with MAGA and singing Kumbaya and pretending that there's more agreement than there actually is. That's a super, super important point. The government has repeatedly accused the 29-year-old of being involved with the gang MS-13, claims Abrego's family and attorneys have denied. His attorney says Abrego, who is from El Salvador, left the country when he was around 16 years old to flee gang violence. In 2011, Abrego entered the U.S. without inspection and stayed in Maryland, where his older brother, a U.S. citizen, lived, the complaint said. So he left El Salvador because he was afraid the gangs would kill him. And then he got deported back to El Salvador into a fucking slave labor concentration camp where the gangs run rampant. In the Wednesday filing, attorneys for Abrego family asked Judge Paul Azinis to rule that over the course of this entire ordeal, from the time he was picked up in that Maryland parking lot to when he was returned to the U.S., the government violated laws and his Fifth Amendment right to due process. They also want Abrego returned to Maryland and separately want a habeas corpus hearing held in Maryland. When Abrego returned last month, the Justice Department said he would face human smuggling charges in Tennessee. He is accused of transporting people not legally in the U.S. within the country. He allegedly participated in a conspiracy over 9 years to move people from Texas deeper into the country, including members of MS-13. Yeah, exactly. The gang he was fleeing from because he was afraid they would kill him. He actually ended up working for them the entire time. Abrego's wife, Jennifer Vasquez-Sura, has insisted that he was not involved in criminal activity. Kilmar worked in construction and sometimes transported groups of workers between job sites, so it's entirely plausible he would have been pulled over while driving with others in the vehicle, his wife previously said in a statement. He was not charged with any crime or cited for any wrongdoing at the time. The family's attorney, Chris Newman, previously said the Trump administration's efforts are part of a campaign of disinformation, defamation against Kilmar and his family. The federal judge presiding over Abrego's criminal case in Tennessee ordered the Trump administration Thursday to comply with local rules prohibiting out-of-court statements that could jeopardize Abrego's right to a fair trial. Abrego's lawyers had asked the court to stop the government from making extrajudicial statements about their clients, saying from the moment Kilmar Abrego Garcia challenged his illegal rendition to El Salvador in March 2025, the government has repeatedly maligned him in public statements. Mr. Abrego is entitled to a fair trial by an impartial jury free from outside influence, but he is nearly certain to be denied that right if the government, left to its own devices, stays its current course. In other words, because of the Trump regime's relentless lies, relentless disinformation and misinformation and propaganda, dragging this guy's name through the mud, this guy's attorneys are going, how is he supposed to have a fair trial if they keep repeating every day on air, oh, he's MS-13, oh, he was human trafficking, oh, the other day on Fox, I'm not kidding, somebody said Kilmar murdered somebody. Bitch, what? There is zero evidence. That's not true. That's not remotely true. That's completely and utterly made up. Nobody's alleged that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so the point, again, that'll be it on that. But again, that's exactly what these detention centers are. All right, they're basically FEMA camps, man. All right, so these things are set in motion. Okay, and this man, hey, matter of fact, let's get the scripture. We'll wrap this up. Let's go to because he's gonna be like a madman, sparing none. Okay, This is Second Ezra 16, verse 67. It says, "Behold, Yahweh Shem Yahushua himself is the judge. Fear him, leave all from your sins, and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall power lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble." All right. And we hold our faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua as we enter in this time. Okay. It says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols." Right. So as it said that the burning wrath of a great multitude. All right. As we've been going into the ICE, these military troops, Gurga troops. All right. The different Edomite hate groups, all of that, man. That's part of that great multitude that's getting ready to come down on Jake. Okay. "And they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered to idols." And this is why you see now, as we just saw here, they have these camps expanding across America. Okay. And like he was saying about the what's it called, the habeas corpus, the denying your right to have a fair trial, that all of that's going to be in effect. Okay. So-called law and order is going to be out the window, man. You're talking about full-blown dictatorship, man. And this is what we see now. And it says, verse 69, "And they should consent unto them, and they that consented to them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot." Yeah, so regardless if you consent and agree to them, you're still going to be destroyed. Prime example, those that think that you're going to get off by taking that device, that chip, all right, you're still going to perish. It says, verse 70, "For there should be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." So again, as I talked about the persecution, us being heavily hated by the world. All right, the narrative that's being spun right now, the small hats, some type of event that they're going to create to justify themselves to come down against the people who believe in the Bible, who fear the Lord. These things are on the table. It says, verse 71, it says, "They should be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses." You see? "Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they should be tried as the gold in the fire." So that trial and tribulation is coming, man. Okay? "Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same." And like the Lord said in Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, man. But he shall be saved out of it, the elect. Okay, the Lord is going to have that hedge. He's going to preserve his saints in this time, man. Okay, but if you are without the Lord, if you're not covered by the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua in these times to come, hey, you're chalk, man. All right, you're finished. And that's how real this shit is getting, man. All right. But that's pretty much the point. I just wanted to bring that out. So as we see, the detention, the new migrant detention centers, aka FEMA camps, are being spread, they're being set up across the country, and we're in those times, man. All right, everything is moving according to prophecy. So I pray this quick lesson was edifying. I'll close out by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rakakwadash, and shalom to the next one. Shalom.